It's Off Exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
Let's roll. Casey, I appreciate you doing this, man.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we've...
You're getting me on a great week. A great week of bad news, but really good journalism.
Yeah, it's a wild week in upstate New York. I mean, the young girl kidnapping, and
Yep.
I mean, everybody right in the gym. It's like we're all working out, but we're in a small group, so it's like you're working out, you're having small talk in between, and it's like, yeah, when you see abductions, a lot of the times I feel like it's either an estranged parent or the kid runs away.
Yeah. That's the vast majority of those cases. Kids disappear all the time. Kids run away all the time. Senior citizens who are, impaired or disabled go missing all the time. The cops reach out and say, hey, can you please put out an alert that we're looking for this person? They're 42 years old. They were last seen wearing a green jacket or something like that. And we post it up immediately. And yeah, the vast majority of those resolve themselves really in a couple of hours or maybe a day or two, with the runaway kid coming home or the adult being found. Sometimes they end tragically with person going missing and their senior citizen dies in the woods or something like that. But this was way beyond that, way beyond.
Yeah, well, it's incredible they found her alive. It's like as the clock runs, you're like, oh, it gets scarier and scarier, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the story of how they got him is, like something out of a suspense novel. It really is.
They hit a fingerprint on a ransom note?
Monday morning, before dawn, truck rolls up, or vehicle, I'm not sure what kind of vehicle it was, rolls up to the family's house. Guy deposits something in the mailbox and drives away. There is a trooper there. The trooper does not stop him, which has become a big question in the aftermath of this. Luckily, it pulls it out, realizes that it is a ransom note for $50,000 for the girl's return, written by her, under duress, of course. And although it takes several hours to get a fingerprint off of it, they were able to get it, make an identification at about 2:30 Monday afternoon. And then it's just a matter of assembling the SWAT team. They were able to identify this guy from a DUI arrest from, I think, 1999. And then it was a matter of assembling state police, what's called a SORT team. And then they moved into, this double wide and then trailer and back where he lived. And that's where they found the girl.
Yeah, it's wild. I was at the Shen field hockey game on Monday, and the state trooper helicopter zipped by the field.
Right.
And it had to be that time when it was heading up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. So, yeah, like as the editor of the Times-Union, you're getting sent stories and getting sent stuff to you all the time, and then you're filtering through things.
I mean, I'm not the only editor at the Times-Union, right? I've got really, really good editors for geographic areas, for subject areas. Susan Mahalik is the managing editor for news. Gary Hahn is the managing editor for sports and features and special publications. Brendan Lyons, who did terrific stuff on the abduction, is both our State House bureau chief and our managing editor for investigations. We've got a digital managing editor, and then we've got great, tough city editors like, Mike Goodwin, Lawrence Stanforth, Tim Blydenberg. I mean, we're talking on a Friday afternoon at the end of this incredible week, and it is this week has just been a reminder of why I love my job. I love the people I work with, and everybody puts in. It's amazing.
Yeah, the abduction story. What else was crazy this week around here?
Well, I mean, we had this completely bananas murder trial of Jacob Klein, who was accused of killing Philip Rabati, who was a young physician's assistant. And Klein, who was convicted on Thursday, found guilty of this killing from last year, was obsessed with his former girlfriend, who had married and moved up here, and Jacob Klein basically stalked the couple, showed up, brutally stabbed to death Philip Rabati, fled, was arrested, 2 days later, 3 days after the killing, and then was rushed back here, defended himself in the trial, which took about 2.5 weeks, which is, the classic line is any lawyer who tries to defend, or anybody who tries to defend himself has a fool for a client. But that's what Jacob Klein did, which created on, I guess it was Tuesday, this completely surreal scene where he is cross-examining his former girlfriend, who was, as prosecutors proved, the motivation for the crime. And she's obviously, I can't imagine what that would have been like, being questioned in a courtroom by the guy who you and prosecutors contend killed your husband. And Rob Gavin, who's our Cops and Courts reporter, covered that, gavel to gavel, as we say. So there was that. There was, in addition to the abduction, there was interesting, chewy political news out of Saratoga Springs in the Darrell Mount civil trial, which is related to the injury of, young black man in 2013, eventually died from his injuries. His family believes the cops did it. The cops say, no way, he just fell from a scaffolding. It was like 3 weeks worth of news this week.
Of terrible news. Let's hope nobody listening is thinking about moving to upstate New York after hearing those 3 stories.
And yet there was good news too. I just wrote my newsletter, and the back half of it, I was like, okay, it's going to be nothing but good news now. El Loco, popular Mexican restaurant, turned 40. Hey, it's great. They're going to be bringing back things from their menu. And, if you want to apply to a SUNY or CUNY school, the application fee is going to be waived all month long. And it's foliage season. And it's beautiful out, right? And it's warm.
Yeah, you got a feedback sandwich, Paul. You got a good news, bad news.
Good news, bad news, good news.
Exactly.
So how'd you first get into this field, into writing and into media?
So I was, your classic kind of high school newspaper guy, and I wanted to be sort of a film critic and a rock critic and that kind of thing. I went to Northwestern University, which has, right outside Chicago, which has one of the country's best journalism schools, and I never took a single journalism class there. I was like an English major in what was called the writing program. I wanted to, write short stories and write fiction, and so then I graduated. I worked on the school paper, but I was the only editor on the school paper who was not in the journalism school, right? And I was the entertainment editor. And then after I graduated, I did a magazine internship. And then after that, tried to get a newspaper job, and I had no luck. And so I thought, well, later for you, journalism, I'll fall back on being a novelist. And I thought, I'll just move somewhere, and I'll write a couple of short stories and apply for a Master's of Fine Arts program, like the Iowa Writers Program or something like that. Moved to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It's gorgeous, because I thought, I'll ski for the winter and write a couple of short stories and be like a lifty or something like that.
Yeah, I've never been out there. Jay, did you stop out there in your road trip?
Yeah, Teton's very
beautiful,
pretty.
right? Yeah. And got out there, and within a week, I had a job at one of the 2 local newspapers. It was like the Jacksonville Guide and the Jacksonville News, and they competed for news and for advertisers. And so it was a competitive newspaper town. And there's nothing like working in a competitive newspaper town, because you're always trying to cut the other guy's throat, journalistically speaking. But in a town like Jackson, the competition was very kind of low boil. And after the paper would come out, you would meet up with the guys you were competing with at the bar. It was sort of like, the old cartoon of like the sheepdog and the coyote.
Yeah.
And once they clock out, they're like good buddies. And it was kind of like that. And it was fun. It was Jackson Hole,
Right.
It's gorgeous. Skiing, hiking, you name it.
Yeah. And then, so how much now are you involved in writing still? Are you writing every day?
I mean, I'm probably writing more emails every day than I'm writing journalism, but I still have a column that appears 3 times a month, I guess, 2 times a month, and then I write a newsletter on Friday. I will jump in and, help with stories occasionally, but primarily I am there to help make sure that the other editors and the other reporters and the digital producers have the resources they need and that the plan is in place for the next day's report, right? And of course the digital report all day long.
Right.
So I'm there to help. What can I do to help is the thing that I find myself saying the most.
When you first got into writing for papers, was it always politics or no?
No. I was the entertainment. I was like in features. So then Jackson Hole for 4 years, and then Burlington, Vermont for the Burlington Free Press for 6 years after that. And then moved here in 2000 to be the entertainment editor of the Times-Union. Was married. My wife was pregnant, and I did that for my first 8 years here, but I began to do other things. I began to do some kind of co-producing TV stuff that we were working on. I began to do kind of a humorous topical column that delved into politics. And then in 2008, they said, you know what? You should be the State House editor. And I swear to you, I thought they were trying to get me to quit, because it's a crazy notion that your entertainment editor should become your political editor. But I tried to cover the arts by paying attention to like money,
right,
and personalities and people's desire to kind of change the world, because artists and politicians are very much alike in that way.
Yeah, you're dealing with egos, and you're dealing with big time personalities and opinions.
Totally. Yeah.
And yeah, the want for power. It's like you're dealing with all those same qualities, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, but money's kind of the biggest factor, But and so I went down to the State House, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, but any job that's worth having is a job that the first day you do it, you think, today's the day everybody's going to find out that I'm just no good at this, that I'm just a sham, And that's the way I felt when I first got down to the Capitol. But after a little while, you learn, you study, you get to know the people, and you get into the groove. And I ended up doing that for 9 years and loved it. And I mean, it kept me in journalism. I probably would have become a publicist or something like that. And so I remain really grateful for that. And so that led to my coming back to the newsroom in sort of editing roles, and I became managing editor. And then I became editor of the Times-Union literally 3 weeks before the pandemic struck. So.
Jeez, that's crazy.
That's a lot to take on, right?
Well, because it's like the news cycles are kind of moving as they are, and then all of a sudden,
I know, right? And everybody had to clear out of the newsroom, and so I was like, "Okay, you're in charge of the newsroom," and I was like, "The newsroom's empty, guys." You know?
What'd you guys do? You all went and just worked from home then?
Yeah. We all worked from home in a way that the newsroom had never operated before. I had never been on a Zoom call before the pandemic. I had never used Slack, our kind of inter office communication.
Like, I hope I never have to do another Zoom workout session. Paul still does some online clients, but I don't think I could.
Right.
They're still tough, but it's it's enjoyable because I still get to connect with the few people I still have with that aren't in the area. But
yeah, my wife does. What's the cycling? We don't have a
Peloton.
We don't have a Peloton, but she uses Peloton on our stationary bike.
Oh, okay. That's what we do too. Like, we didn't buy the bike; we just get the app and we use like our shittier version of the Peloton.
Exactly.
In case you people out there need the hack, just buy a regular bike and get the app.
Right. Yeah. We got a perfectly nice bike. But yeah, so I was operating from my attic, for months and months, and it was weird, but it was good, because if I was nervous about becoming the editor and not, living up to the editors we had before, the slate was clean. The blackboard had been wiped. There was no blueprint for how to be the editor of the Times-Union during a pandemic where everybody's working from their attics.
Right. So did you have to create a bunch of new systems to make this company function?
Yeah. I mean, once again, we got good people who kind of helped out with that. And I remember our Erica Smith, who's our excellent, innovative managing editor for like the digital product. She had just been hired, and she wasn't supposed to start for like 2 months. And I remember she was living down in Virginia, and I remember saying, hey, we could really use your help. You want to start early? She was like, yeah, definitely. Yes. Because of course she's a journalist in the middle of this humongous story. And she wanted to get started right away. So, but yeah, she was doing it from Virginia.
I think that's one of the positives that came out of the workplaces post-COVID is like, some people don't need to be in the office every day. You can have better balance with your family life and still get your tasks done for work without going through some crazy commute and sitting in an office or maybe living somewhere that's not where, the company's located.
I mean, I have an online client now who he's had to go back in the office a minimum of 3 days a week, and it's between that and like the routine they had established with their kids.
Yeah.
It's an adjustment, and his commute from where he is, because he's in like the Westchester area, he goes into the city. He's like an hour commute every day.
Yeah,
that he goes in. So that's 6 hours in the 3 days that he goes in, and it wears on you when he literally was getting all the work done that he needed to get done from home. And he understands, if there's a meeting or something like that, you go into work. You gotta meet face to face with somebody. You do that. But he's like, do I need to really be there when there's nobody sitting next to me in like the 7 cubicles? Here.
Well, and especially where like getting into New York City, getting into Manhattan, if you live in the burbs,
oh, dude,
that's like that's like a battle zone, and also probably chews up like what 2.5 hours of your day.
Oh yeah,
dude, I could be working during that time.
Exactly. So. Like you could be working during that time, but instead you have to sit on a train.
Yes,
and then get to work. So it's about that balance, and I think that is, like you said, one of the good things that came out of it for some people is that work-life balance.
Yeah.
But a newsroom is such a weird, unique atmosphere where people are like yelling and screaming on the phone and all that.
Is the dynamic of everybody together, is there importance to that? Or
yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. People bounce ideas off each other. The collaboration is a lot easier when you're not trying to do it on text or Slack or that kind of thing. Now, Harry Rosenfeld, who was editor of the Times-Union all of the 80s into the 90s and was like a legendary editor, like he was Woodward and Bernstein's editor during Watergate. He was like the managing editor for Metro at the Washington Post. And there were stories about Harry, who passed away a couple of years ago, like walking out of his office, which is I guess my office now, and saying, what are all these reporters doing in the newsroom? In other words, the stories are out there, go get them. But yeah, it's it's nice. A bustling newsroom is a really cool atmosphere, without a doubt.
Do you have people that you idolized in like the news world and reporting world, or no?
Well, yeah. When I was in entertainment, it was a lot of really good arts writers, and music writers, like Pauline Kael, who was the movie critic for The New Yorker for years and years, and is just like a fantastic writer, and Greil Marcus, who was the dean of the kind of rock critics back in the the great era of Rolling Stone.
Yeah, because he's been in some trouble, right? What's his Jan Werner? Is that his name?
Jan Wenner.
Right, Jan
yes.
Wenner. Yeah. My friend.
You guys wanted to talk about cancel culture. I was thinking about that on the drive up. Like that's a pretty perfect example of I think the phenomenon that you guys might be thinking of as cancel culture. But anyway, not to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean,
listen, we could dive into it.
We'll dive into it. I mean, okay, so because him with the Rolling Stone, he got in trouble lately for what were his comments? They were
so Jan Wenner, the co-founder and sort of presiding patriarch of Rolling Stone, put out this book that just came out a couple of weeks ago that was sort of a collection of his interviews with the great, I think it's called like legends, and it's the greatest, with the guys that he thinks define rock and roll. And when I say guys, I do mean that because it was all men, all white guys. And so it was Bruce Springsteen and John Lennon, Mick Jagger, I think probably Keith Richards. It was the usual, absolutely the usual suspects.
No Jimi Hendrix is on his
well,
list.
He didn't include like a vintage Rolling Stone interview back in the day with Jimi Hendrix. And he gave an interview to a really good interviewer for the New York Times. And this guy said, why no people of color? Why no Prince, for example?
Yeah.
Why no women? Why no, Joni Mitchell, Joan Jett, Chrissy Hynde of the Pretenders, And he read this like long list, and Winter tried to cut him off, like, no, I see your point. And the guy was like, no, I'm not done. And he continued to like read this long list of women and people of color, Stevie Wonder and on and on. And Winter just, his response was just the dumbest possible response.
Put his foot in his mouth.
Oh my God, like over and he kept doing it over and over. It was like watching a guy step on a rake and smash in his face and then be like, ow, that hurts. I'm going to do it again. Bam, boom. And he said, well, women really couldn't articulate well what rock was about. They weren't really eloquent on that front. And you could just tell that the reporter was like, oh God, he's hanging himself. And so this interview came out, and the criticism that Winter received was monumental and well deserved.
Well, see,
I would say.
There's times where, and we all have our different opinions, right? But there's times when I feel like things are well deserved. Like, you shouldn't say those things. That's not correct. Because, now in the news, you see a lot of people talking about free speech and things getting canceled. Like, how do you view that as a reporter and sifting through information and knowing, hey, here's how I stay in the middle and report on certain things, or here's something that, hey, I don't think this is correct at all.
Yeah.
And you voice your opinion about that.
So there is, there's the question of kind of what is free speech, right? So that's one thing. And so my dad, who passed away last year, once had this great like legendary dinner where with Julia Child and Julia Child's husband Paul. Julia Child, a famous TV chef, legendary, and somebody, and they had been like intelligence officers in World War II, and for a long period of time they had lived in China. And somebody asked Paul Child, what was it like living in China? And he thought for a minute and he said, it wasn't easy living in a place where you couldn't stand up and yell, the son of a bitch never touched second,
Right.
Which is, being a baseball dad, I guess that resounds with me. And that's what I think of as free speech. Free speech is having the right and being secure enough in your First Amendment rights to stand up and say, the son of a bitch never touched second. That does not protect you from the guy 2 rows over standing up and saying, you're blind, he did, you're crazy, that kind of thing. So there is a sports metaphor for you as to what I think free speech is. So in terms of bias when it comes to journalism, which is, it's related, but it's different. Every reporter, every editor, like you, like everybody here, we have biases, right? We have certain prejudices that hopefully do not get in the way of our being functioning members of a civil society, right? Reporters definitely have biases, without a doubt. The tools of journalism, like the things we do when we do them well to report a story, help us kind of correct for those biases, And if you're craftsman-like in your journalism, bias will not impede what you're supposed to do, which is seek the truth and report it fully, be accountable, act independently, minimize harm. Those are like the 4 tenets of the Society of Professional Journalism that we have actually painted up on the wall of like the editorial conference room at the Times Union. So that's a very long, drawn out answer.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then, there was no social media when you first got into this field, right? Because now, right before,
maybe no, nothing.
Right,
no internet. No, I started in like 1990.
So before you put out a story, it prints, people read it, and that's probably that. Now you put out a story, it posts, and let the comments flow, right?
And then I got to spend all day either defending it, correcting people's wrong impressions of it, or calling out other media outlets for ripping it off, which is exhausting.
Yeah, like how much time does that take out of your day?
Too much, without a doubt. And I should You know, the only good thing about like the demise of Twitter or the decline of Twitter is that I'm now so disgusted with Twitter that I now find myself spending less time on it. I still spend too much time on it,
Right.
but it's just like there's just no point to it anymore, you know?
What's the biggest changes that you've felt scrolling through your Twitter feed or X feed or whatever the hell it is since it changed?
The Musk feed.
Yeah.
Well, I know for a fact that not as many people are engaging with my tweets. I have no idea if somebody has tweaked my algorithm or
Right.
dialed me down,
Or is that
something
because
like
of
that.
the paid service versus the non-paid
I
service
think
now?
I've never had like a blue check. I've never been,
Right.
you know, and I'll never pay for it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I will never pay for it.
No.
But also like good smart people are just abandoning the site or just not spending nearly as much time on it. And I'm now getting like all these paid or sponsored tweets from people I just do not care about.
Right.
And it's really a shame. And also I used to use TweetDeck, and TweetDeck was a great tool to follow breaking news. Like a presidential debate on TweetDeck was great to follow because you could, you know, I could follow all the people who follow Capital Confidential, you know, the Times Union's kind of political page. And all of the people who I follow and the Times Union's reporting and that kind of thing. And once again, since I'm not verified, I don't get TweetDeck anymore. That really
I
hurt.
didn't even know what that was until you just said it. So
TweetDeck, you know, you could follow like different streams of either notifications or posts by different people.
this is how much I was on Twitter before and how little I'm still on Twitter. I never really used Twitter, but even when it was like big.
It was like watching 4 TVs at once.
Oh, it's like picture in picture. all
But
that,
it was like
4
Elvis in the jungle room, like watching multiple
Red Zone.
TVs.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very much like Red Zone.
The Red
that's
Zone
a
on
good
Twitter.
comparison,
Yeah.
Paul.
Right.
But aren't these primary ways that people get their news now? Real time is on a social media site, whatever, a
It's gotta
Facebook
be.
or a Twitter.
It's gotta be.
Yeah, and it depends on who those people are. I mean, young people tend to get more of their news coming at them from Instagram or, you know, maybe even TikTok in some cases. Older folks are still using Facebook for a lot of stuff, but Facebook once again is like dialed down.
Yeah, I mean,
the
you ask
journalism
you
that
ask the
they're
kids in here, like, yeah, Facebook's for my parents.
Yeah.
Facebook's for old people.
Yeah, well, put me in that category now.
Yeah, put me in that category
But
too.
it's tough, right? Like, we're all addicted to our phones. I can say I'm not,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
am. You are.
Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
Jordy
Yeah.
maybe the least, but probably.
But still am.
But still am.
Jordy's of all of us in
And
here,
it's
yeah.
like, you know, I get home and I don't want to have to deal with, you know, this week's politics and the news. I just want to see my daughter and watch some shitty TV and,
I just
you
wanna
know,
watch some shitty
and
TV.
heat up some food or not heat it up and eat it.
I know.
But it's right, like I do a couple scrolls on my phone and all of a sudden I'm slapped in the face with like Biden and the border wall and this and Taylor Swift at the football game. I just like don't want to see this right now, but it's there and I can't escape it.
It's worse for me in the morning because I wake up and my phone is like, you know, on the table right by my bed, and I pick it up and I can piss away, you know, 45 minutes just looking at once again the kind of abandoned mall of Twitter or X. I guess I've been misbranding it.
Yeah, I may
It's
have
still Twitter. I don't give a shit.
I know.
I think I
I'm
may
the
have
same way.
I may have messed up my physiology. I don't think I can go to the bathroom without scrolling through my phone anymore.
I know. It's rough.
I'll tell you, if I go in the bathroom without my phone, I'm a little lost.
I'm like,
go
what
in
am I
there,
here
go,
for?
what do I do now?
Or you come back from your bathroom and you're like, what happened? Got to check my phone. Did anybody text me? It's terrible.
It's bad. It's bad.
It's terrible. But that's part of the business you're in now, right? Like you feel like you have to be posting to these outlets all day because that's how people are going to consume what you're creating and what your people are creating.
Yeah, like for any minute of the day, I'm picking up my phone now. I've got an app called Chartbeat, and I can look at any given time and see how many people are on timesunion.com right now. And right now it's 443 people. We're talking
Make it 444.
at like, yeah, exactly.
I saw 443. I was like, I gotta make it 444.
443, and it's because it's now like 7 o'clock at night, so people are hopefully talking to their families or having dinner or
Yeah,
something.
but probably not. They're probably on
And-
their
Did it go to
phones.
444 just now?
And then I can look at this and I can see what stories are trending. Like there are now 47 people reading the story that we were discussing just as you guys turned on the tape about the story by Brendan Lyons about whether Craig Ross is going to be examined for involvement in.
Can you clear this up?
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a lot of small talk in the gym. When she was first abducted, people say, hey, there was this guy in Saratoga over the summer who was filming younger girls who were running or walking. Did you hear of that story?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And same last name as the guy that was arrested. Is that true, or is this just people talking?
I don't think they're related. I can't remember that guy's name, but Ross is a pretty common name, but I don't think there's any connection between the two.
Yeah.
Except both of these guys allegedly are creepy.
Right.
Beyond creepy, obviously. In the case of Craig Ross, who was the alleged abductor in this case.
Okay, so, just curious about that because that was like a lot of talk in the gym this week.
No, I mean that would be quite something. But no, I've heard no connection between the two of them.
The supplement industry is like the Wild West. The lack of regulations mean the supplements you purchase may not even contain the ingredients listed on the label, which is why I get my daily vitamins and supplements from Thorne. Thorne vitamins and supplements are made without compromise. Quality ingredients ensure your body optimally absorbs and digests your daily supplements, while in-house and third-party testing ensure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Thorne offers a variety of health tests reviewed by board-certified physicians that evaluate your lifestyle, gut health, sleep, stress hormones, and metabolic markers to determine which vitamins and supplements may be most effective in helping you feel and perform better throughout the day. For college and professional athletes, Thorne has NSF-certified supplements that make sure you won't get pop positive on a drug test. Whether you're an athlete, professional, parent, grandparent, or weekend warrior, Thorne's selection of high-quality supplements can help improve your quality of life. Switch to Thorne's high-quality and extensively tested supplements today at thorne.com/u/CDSF. That's thorne.com/u/CDSF. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Do you have notifications shut off on the social media on your phone, like you don't get red circles, or do you get red circles?
Notifications of like news stories?
No, of
X,
comments,
Twitter,
likes
comments
on your posts.
likes,
Oh God, no!
Okay,
I couldn't
good.
imagine.
Okay,
anything.
good.
I feel like you would go. I feel like you'd lose your mind.
Oh, totally. Oh yeah. If my phone blurped every time I got either an email or somebody liked a tweet or responded to a tweet or, hit me on Facebook or something like that, I would lose my mind.
Yeah.
Oh no way. Do you guys do that?
No, shut off.
No.
I probably for the first year of the business I had them on, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore. Because it's hard to ignore it when it pops up. You want to just click on it.
The only thing that I really
such
have
a
on
distraction.
is messages, because we'll get messages from like somebody in the gym to be like, "Hey, can I come at this time?"
Yeah.
But that's it.
No, I get alerts of like texts and Slack messages because that's like our internal communication. And I realize now as I say this, I do get notifications whenever anybody interacts with me on Threads, which is like the
the
Instagram
X.
meta thing.
Yeah.
And but I guess not enough. I haven't switched it off, which means that not enough people are engaging on Threads yet. So it's not too annoying.
It's all right. When X goes down, it will.
I couldn't imagine, with your Twitter sprees, having to deal with notifications on everything.
Oh, I'd lose my mind. But that said, I'm probably checking Twitter like every 20 minutes.
Right.
It's terrible.
Do people have to pump out higher volumes of news stories now than previous times, or no?
Not at the Times Union. I do know that there are outlets that do have kind of, content expectations. We have reporters who might write. We have breaking news reporters who might write 2, maybe 3 stories a day. But at the same time, if those people say, I need some time, I think I got a really good story, I'm going to need like a day and a half or 2 days. If it's a good story, we'll say, absolutely, you got it. And we also have investigative reporters who can go weeks without a byline because they're chewing up a big database, or they're working on a deep investigation.
But that's a good story, right? You're checking your sources, you're talking to multiple people. That's how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we always, all of our reporters should be, obviously, it's a daily newspaper. We got to fill it up every day, right? So everybody should be working on a range of sort of quick, interesting stories that matter, not 2-car fatals, not house fires, which are very, very important, but that's not the kind of journalism that people come to the Times-Union for generally. We have to cover the news of the day, but I always want all of our reporters to be working on quick stuff and longer lead, we talk about lead time, longer lead stories that are for a Sunday front, for example, or that are important. I mean, the best reporters can do both and can kind of pivot quick and say, I'm putting this down because I'm working on this big story.
Just shifting back and forth with me. Hey, here's a quicker story. I'm working on my longer one in the background.
Yeah, gear shifting all the time. Yeah.
With social media, right, like people's attention spans are way shorter. Is that hard? Like, do you feel like people's interest in things go up and then go away quicker than they used to? Or
yeah. I mean, definitely. It's a 24-hour news cycle, and what was cool and interesting when something first appears on the web or in print, for that matter, can get much more easily kind of disappeared back into the kind of backwash of the news day a lot quicker. But I will say that, really good stories, really good, really well-crafted stories can still rise up and do really well when they're first published, but you will see spikes of interest in those stories weeks or even months later. Last December, we did this great story on a guy who disappeared from like suburban Connecticut, like disappeared from his wife, his kids, just poof, vanished. And about 10 years later, he turned up under a different name after dying of a heart attack in the Catskills. And so the story of this guy's vanishing and how he lived this kind of hidden life in the Catskills was just an incredible, bizarre kind of whodunit story with this big mystery at the middle of it as to why did he do it? And that story, the headline was "The Man Who Vanished," and we posted it up, and it just killed. And I remember I was skiing the day that it first appeared, and I would get on the lift. This is terrible. I like check my phone and be like, "Oh, it's killing! I love it! Everybody's reading this story. It's fantastic." But then, like in the days and weeks afterwards, all of a sudden, like somebody in Australia, would read it and share it among their network, and then boom, it would like spike up again. And every time it happened, it was like getting that kind of, it's like a dopamine hit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And it really, because you're like, oh, we worked really hard to make that a great story. Somebody's discovering it again. Journalists want to be read. They want their stuff to connect to people.
Why'd that guy disappear?
Nobody knows.
It still don't.
No.
How long ago was that?
He disappeared from Connecticut. I think it was 2013. It was like in the middle of the summer. His wife was on, I think, a European trip, and then she got back. He was supposed to pick her up. He just never showed up. He just vanished. And
Gambling debt. That's what it is.
They couldn't find anything.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He had a bookie. There's no paper trail.
Yeah.
That's it.
He was like a real estate assessor. So,
oh yeah, definitely. That's what I'm going with.
Dude, Seiler, one of the craziest, you know how many people we see every day? It's like, you see 70 people in a day, maybe more. You hear crazy stuff or you get crazy messages.
I'm trying to think of what.
The craziest ever was a college baseball kid, and we get an email from somebody that we don't know. And
Oh,
go-
I know what you're talking about now.
And he goes, hey, I saw so-and-so on your Instagram. I'm his bookie, and he owes me like $3,000.
Oh, jeez.
And we're like, what do we do with this email? Like, do we talk to this kid? Do we not? And I think Dan and I looked at each other, and maybe Paul, and we're just like, delete email?
Yeah,
and we're like, yeah,
right.
delete email.
Exactly.
we never saw that
Don't
email.
get involved. Can you come in here? We want to talk to you. We just got an email. It's troubling. It's troubling. We want to talk to you.
Yeah, I should save those and like print all those out and put them in the office.
Just like screenshot it and then delete it.
Yeah.
I used to, the time when I sort of lifted weights with the most regularity, I would go with a buddy of mine down to the old YMCA on like Washington Avenue in Albany, like right where it hits Henry Johnson kind of. It's closed down now. And the weight room was like in the basement. It was just like a boiler room. And there was a guy who my buddy and I would see there pretty much every morning who's this big bull-necked guy. And he would always be talking about lifting weights on the yard. He's like, oh, that wouldn't go on the yard. Hey, you better put those weights away. That wouldn't go on the yard. And my buddy and I were always like, I wonder what he means by the yard.
Yeah, why is he working out in the yard?
Yeah. It was like Scotland Yard.
He's got a nice backyard. Like
the yard of his parents' house in Greenwich, Massachusetts, or and it was hilarious. So yeah, that kind of guy,
Yeah, man. Oh, it's hilarious. Yeah, so taking over, okay, going back to, I guess, news talk and your job. So taking over right before COVID, I mean, it's a tremendous amount of information probably getting thrown your way and needing to figure things out and process and post. How crazy was that time when you first came on?
It was nuts. I mean, because wanted to put out the paper, wanted to keep everybody safe, the reporters still had to go out. They could do a lot of their stuff by phone, but not all of it. And photographers had to be in proximity to the things that they were shooting.
Right.
That was kind of our greatest fear, that like the photographer might get too close, or, it was in the early days of COVID. Nobody knew how airborne these things were. And at the same time, we were dealing with Cuomo and the fact that Governor Cuomo at that point became this sort of father to the nation, and his popularity was just exploding. And that was a big story. Everything he was saying in his daily briefings were important, but also the kind of political story of how he had become Papa COVID, was an enormous story as well.
Yeah,
So,
I think if I heard one of Paul, put one of his talks in computer right now through my headphones, I'd start probably like convulsing over here to hear one of those briefings again.
but people loved them. I mean, I would get calls from, because I'd covered Cuomo since I got down to the Capitol, and he was Attorney General, and then of course when he became governor, and he and the Times Union had tangled a little bit. I had tangled with him a little bit.
I told Ben, did Ben tell you this the other day or no? Ben came into the gym the other day and your son didn't sign in. He just showed up. And Dan was like, hey, Ben didn't sign in. And I said, Dan, hey, cut Ben some slack. It's okay he didn't sign in. I said I was, researching for his dad's podcast this week. And I saw enough anti-Cuomo articles that Ben's good to go. He doesn't need to sign in anymore. He can come in whenever he wants.
You wouldn't even imagine the phone conversations from the attic throughout those the portions of
that was the other
COVID,
thing,
because I was there too, and it was
yes, because that time when I was home, so that was 2020 when Cuomo was completely on top, and then sort of the end of 2020 into 2021, I was still working from home up in the attic, and those were the months when Cuomo began to kind of slide and then really fall.
Well, I think right in the beginning of COVID, nobody knew what was going on.
No.
You're all like I remember my business partner Dan's mom, we shut down March 16th, 2020. I'll never forget it.
I'll never forget that date in my life.
Yeah,
ever.
you had to leave your job in New York. Me, I look at a Cuomo tweet and go, well, I guess I'm shutting down my business. And then Dan's mom gets, he'd say, my mom's got COVID. I was at dinner with her the other night, and we're like, oh shit, like Dan's mom's gonna die. I'm gonna go live in my my aunt's pool house and live out my remaining days right now.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know what's going on. I think that just that whole time period, and that opened up, like, I was never a political guy or looked into anything or understood how politics and politicians interact with society, right? Like, I was, in my late 20s, early 30s when that happened. And then to all of a sudden see this interplay with, what decisions they make and how that directly affects you and your life and your well-being. It was a crazy time.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you're talking about mid-March. I've still got a stack of papers from sort of that day, and it's the Daily News, the New York Post, and the Times Union, New York Times, and there's very much that kind of Mars attacks, in every science fiction movie about an alien invasion. Yeah. It's sort of the last newspaper blowing down the street. The headline is Mars attacks. And those headlines and those front pages very much have that kind of end of the world feel to them. Yeah. And it was a crazy time. I grew up reading science fiction novels and horror novels, and the apocalypse. That's probably the closest.
I was just thinking,
come.
Casey, I've had two times where it felt apocalyptic, and it was that. Yeah. It was that March 16th and the early COVID, where I was living in the pool house, counting down my remaining days, driving up to the gym, drinking beers at the desk, just like trying to keep the business afloat.
Time out. You weren't drinking beers. You were drinking something else because you don't drink beer.
I was drinking seltzers.
Okay.
And number two was 9/11.
I was young at 9/11. So 9/11 impacted me because our dad was a state trooper.
Oh, wow.
So I was in 5th grade. Jordy would have been in 3rd grade.
Yeah, I was in 6th.
So I remember getting pulled out of Mrs. King's classroom in 5th grade. I remember they pulled it up on the televisions.
Yeah,
they explained to us what just happened, that we were gonna go home, and I got home, and I remember my dad was at work, and my mom sitting us down and saying, "Hey, your dad's going down to New York City tonight. I don't know how long he's gonna be there." And I'm fucking terrified. You just see these planes at the building, not really old enough to piece everything together, but old enough to know I feel very scared. So 9/11 impacted me in that way. No, the other one was I lived in Boston in 2013.
Oh, boy. Yeah, okay.
I was working at a gym in Hudson, so the suburbs of Boston, and there was the bombing. Yeah. And my wife was at the marathon that day.
Oh,
so
God.
So you see the bombings. And
far away from...
She was far away, but I didn't know where she was at the moment. Yeah. She's drinking with her friends all day. We're 21, 22. So, yeah, I'm fucking terrified. And then find out she's safe. But those next few days, when they're doing the manhunt for the guys, I lived in Alston. The guy was in Watertown, so like a town over. They're doing the press conference in front of the Chipotle, the mall where the Chipotle's at that I go to. You're like, oh my God.
Like, dude, I eat there 3 times a week.
And that, that was that marathon bombing, and then those early COVID times were, those were the two moments for me.
The early COVID times for me, you said apocalyptic.
You were in New York City,
I was
Paul.
in New York City. You've seen I Am Legend with
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you that literally was how New York City was at times. Like there was literally deer in the streets of Manhattan.
You saw a deer for real?
And like I got a video from a guy that I was gonna be working with people at his gym. He was delivering like weights around the city to people to help them, be able to do at home workouts. Yeah, so I ordered some weights through him. He sends me a video, and there's literally 2 deer crossing in front of him in the middle of like Manhattan.
Oh God!
And I'm like, in my head, I was like, this is I Am Legend. Yeah. This is literally I Am Legend. We're all gonna die. There's gonna be zombies. We're all gonna die. I'm going back upstate. See you later.
And the thing you were probably worried about the most was, I think the thing that everybody worries about is that if I call the fire department or I call the cops, will they come? You know, because that's when. That's kind of if I go to the hospital, will the hospital be able to take me in if I need help?
Especially at that time. And when I was like down there, it was, hospitals were full,
Right. And there was the fear that they were going to get overrun. Mm-hmm. And that, of course, was kind of the context for a lot of the decisions that Cuomo made and the government made, and the federal government too, for that matter, So, but it was, that was a crazy time.
Did it make it crazier going into the pandemic because we were post this like really polarizing time where Trump goes into office and he runs versus Hillary, and everybody, like I said, we're younger, we're in our 30s, so it's like we're kind of just getting our footing in the world and starting families and having money and kind of figuring things out. So all of a sudden you start to be like, man, things are people are really over here or they're really over here. And if you're in the middle, people kind of want you to be somewhere. If you're one side, they don't like you. Have things always been like that, or is that newer?
No, I mean, I think this is probably, I was born in 1967, and that was definitely the first couple of years of my life. I don't remember reading the paper back then, but just from history, I know that was such a polarized time in this country, and the Vietnam War was kind of the axis of a lot of that argument, and then of course Watergate and everything that came after it. I was 13 years old when Ronald Reagan was elected, and I was just getting out of college when the Reagan era was sort of winding down, and the 80s were. They seem in retrospect to be this kind of like calm period, but I can remember there was all kinds of tumult, and there was AIDS, and obviously a lot of racial division in this country still back then, but yeah, now things are not they are not good in that respect now. I think that if you spend a lot of time on social media, which we have all admitted to, they can seem a lot worse, than they actually are.
Because I feel like people, if there's somebody you disagree with on social media and you're really talking shit and saying bad things about them, if you're in person with them, you're probably not saying all of those things.
Right.
Or only one of you is saying it.
Maybe, or neither.
Or neither.
Oh, God, yeah, because the amount of kind of anonymous stunting and trolling that goes on social media is so anti-civil, and it's exactly what you're saying. When people are allowed to walk around with the digital equivalent of bags on their heads when they walk into the saloon, as it were, they're far more likely to get loaded and start screaming obnoxious stuff until somebody has to kick them out of the saloon. So,
yeah, and then you have groups of other people who are just like egging them on and cheering them on to keep.
Sure. Yeah.
Then you got me just sitting in the middle, like, what is going on? Right now?
Why is this happening?
Can't we all just get along? Like,
I know. What is this? I find myself constantly saying all the time, like, what is this in aid of? In other words, the thing you were about to say that was like a really good hot take. What's it going to make better? Is it going to make anything better? And that's. I find myself completely, I'm a complete hypocrite in that, because I will say things on social media that I know is not going to, what I need to do whenever I post something on social media, I need to say, is this good for the Times-Union? I'm the editor of the Times-Union. Right. Is this good for the Times-Union? Or is this just a snarky hot take that I really want to lay down on somebody?
Listen, Casey, if you got a snarky sports take, post it all day.
I have no snarky sports takes.
But if it's like anything else, you might want to just think about it a little bit.
No, I mean Ben and I will watch sports shows, and I am not a humongous sports fan. I know just enough.
He's told us this.
Yeah, no, I know just enough for my son to completely dunk on me in any kind of
but he's 6'6". He would dunk on you anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm talking figuratively dunk on me. But yeah, he's heard me talk shit about Aaron Rodgers, and
I mean, listen, me and him have some good banter in here, but it's always good. Like, it's always good. It's never like I never feel like, oh, I want to punch you in the face, Ben.
No, he was raised to be a good banterer.
Yeah, we're good. We worked hard. We have a good time. We're both objective.
Yeah.
So it's good, but sports takes different than everything else, I feel like.
How was it not being a big sports guy and then raising a kid who's so into sports?
I mean, that's a good question, because I realized that for the stuff that my son is way into, I was way into it. I really was. I mean, would you agree? I'm looking at my son. Yes, 2 thumbs up.
That's 2 thumbs up in case anybody wanted to know.
No. I mean, I was a loud, enthusiastic, not a prick, but a loud, enthusiastic.
You were cheering your kid on.
Yeah, I was cheering my kid on.
As you should.
Yeah, and not being a jerk or a troll about it, but I was really enthusiastic, And one of the proudest I've ever been was, God, I think it was like 2020, where a young reporter a guy who was in town really just for a year as part of like the Hearst Fellowship program, which brings in like young reporters to our newsroom. And so this guy, who's like a huge baseball fan, he covered Cuomo. Actually, he did great stuff covering Cuomo.
Said Cuomo too many times.
And but he ended up assistant coaching while he was in town, just as like a volunteer thing to do at National Little League. And I was out having breakfast with him one time, and he said, "Yeah, I heard that that you started something that people still do at National, which is when somebody either gets a hit or strikes somebody out, you used to say, 'Do it again,' in sort of a southern accent, like, 'Do that again.'" And he said, people still do that. It's like a thing. And I was so proud.
That's awesome.
I know. Do it again.
Ben, my favorite one of my favorite like baseball game things is what Socrates does. They're like promo, the K-Man.
Oh, the K-Man's legendary.
Yeah, what's the K-Man, Ben? It's one of my favorites.
So for those who aren't familiar, the Socrates Stallions play in the
Ben Seiler. Shout out Ben Seiler.
Ben Seiler. Son of Casey Seiler.
Yes.
And so the Socrates Stallions play in the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League. I played 3 years for the Albany Dutchmen. And for every home game at Socrates, the Socrates, I guess the MC, because that's what it really is at Socrates. It's kind of a circus down there. They'll pick one player in the lineup to be the K-Man. And if he strikes out, everybody gets, I think, buy one, get one free beer for the half inning after that.
Nice.
So there's definitely some pressure on the K-Man when he comes up. I know my good friend Ryan McGee, he is a bit of a hothead on the field, and whenever he'd be K-Man, it would not be a positive night
How
for
does
him.
the hitter know he's the K-Man? They announce it?
Oh,
right?
big time.
Yeah.
Booming. Ladies and gentlemen, the K-Man.
So people must go crazy for them to strike out.
Oh, they're, if you got 2 strikes, you're hearing it. And all the guys, of course, the backstop is 10 feet away from home plate, so everyone hears everything that's being said.
Yeah.
We had a kid in here that was the K-Man once. I think he struck out 3 times.
Was
in that
Ty?
Game. I think it was Ty.
Yeah.
Ty. Shout out Ty. He was on the podcast like way back, but pretty sure he struck out 3 times when he was the K-Man. I can't validate that. He might have to confirm that, but I'm like pretty sure he was the K-Man. But he's also from Socrates.
Yeah.
Which made it even better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fun town to go see a ball game in. I think we went down like 2 or 3 of your games there. Yeah.
Did you dice him up?
I never pitched at Socrates.
Well,
Oh.
Yeah.
it's because they weren't good enough to deal with you.
I just enjoyed the
Yeah,
bench
but
game.
I was telling Ben when he was like, my dad wasn't a big sports guy growing up. I was into sports. It was interesting because I was a big sports person growing up, but I've like phased out of it. I just burnt myself out over the years.
Yeah, when we talk with kids in here, we always tell them, like, they'll ask Mike a question, and Mike's like, ask Paul or Dan.
Yeah, it's
really
just,
ask
it's
me.
interesting. I'm in such a sports realm here, but I don't know the last time I watched a sporting event that wasn't like I just went to it.
I mean, probably like the Super Bowl or something like that, I would assume.
No, I mean, we just had our daughter last year, so I wasn't watching any. I wasn't watching any Super Bowl.
Definitely
yeah,
not
so I
last
don't
year.
even
Yeah,
know.
Definitely not last
exactly,
year.
right.
Yeah, I have no idea the last sporting event I watched on TV.
Well, so my dad was a really good athlete, and he was also like an enormous sports guy. He was like a total box score reader, stats guy,
Yep.
poured over the sports page every day.
That's me.
And so he and Ben could have just hour-long arguments since Ben was 5 years old on like great players of yesteryear and all that. And I just knew that my dad thought, how did my comic book sci-fi nerd son, end up having this strapping sports fan?
Casey, this literally reminds me of my brother-in-law right now.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Just you can keep going.
Jesse?
Yes, Jesse and Violet.
Right.
That's exactly what it is.
Oh yeah, like movie trivia, you name it. I'm a former rock critic, movie critic,
Yeah.
and but so now the joke is, I think I laid it on you just last night, is that Ben's son or daughter is going to be the biggest like art nerd in the world.
100%. 100%.
So you're saying it's just alternating?
It's
Alternating
generations.
generations to
Yep.
keep the
Keep the
fresh,
peace. You got to keep the peace.
It's
you know?
interesting. Like our daughter's 8 months old. Like who knows what the hell she's gonna like.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to Dad at one point, and I'm the oldest. Jordy's 2 years younger than me. My sister's 7 years younger than me. And Jordan, you would say I'm the most similar to Dad?
Yes.
I can confirm that.
Everybody probably can. So he's like, I have you and you're just like me. And he's like, so I expect my other 2 kids to be just like me. Right? And I would say he probably, their relationships were a little bit more difficult than mine and his, right? Because you guys are different and not
that's
like
well
him,
said, yeah.
think like him, into what he likes. But like, yeah, who knows what the hell your kids are going to like and be. They're not going to be the same as you.
No, how boring would that be?
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I hope she's not like me, man.
When you said that thing about you being like into comics and like that kind of stuff, it literally, I was like, that is my brother-in-law Jesse and my niece Violet. She will try everything. She's done theater and sports, but she definitely loves soccer. She loves basketball. She plays flag football now.
Yeah.
And she comes in here and she works out. Jesse, like, he played like soccer. He might have done Little League baseball, but like Jesse is a comic book artist. He's a tattoo artist. He's an art guy, 100%. My sister, not athletic. Sorry, Jessica. Jessica, you are not athletic. I don't know where Violet must have got it from me. That's how I'm going with it.
Right. And like my brother and sister, I got a younger brother, younger sister, and they are, I don't know. It's the aquarium I've kind of been swimming in almost my entire life, but they are I guess are kind of more like me than they are unlike me, although we're very different in a lot of ways. Yeah. But yeah, I like my brother's an academic. He teaches American studies. My sister is also a really great journalist. She lives out in Portland, Oregon, the ultimate kind of hipster city. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think you just want, and here we like to see kids that their interests are diverse. Like if a kid has all their eggs in, let's say, the baseball basket or the lacrosse basket, like that's great. I'm glad you're motivated, but like what happens when that's not there anymore?
Right.
Because at some point it's not going to be there for you anymore. So what else do you like? What else can you identify with? What else do you want to spend your time doing?
Yeah.
And I feel like the kids that are less diverse, Paul, put more pressure on themselves.
I think they put more pressure on themselves, but we also see it in here. You see just the kids' demeanor when they're in here. The kids that don't put the pressure on themselves, they're having more fun while they're in here, but they're also still working hard at the same time. Whereas the kid that's putting the pressure on themselves, they're working hard, but they almost overanalyze everything. They overthink everything. And you're like, hey, dude, just work out. Just have a good time. Just have fun. Like one of my favorite stories recently was talking to Ben about how they did the podcast. And he got to talk to freaking Pete Rose.
You had Pete Rose on.
He had Pete Rose on the podcast. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's sick.
And I was like, we were talking about, he showed us the clip and whatnot. And I was like, that's a cool thing. And I've given some of our younger kids that are, freshmen and sophomores now. And I'm like, you guys want to get into this? Like you talked about Northwestern. The kid wants to go to Northwestern because he wants to be a journalist and get into like the sports broadcasting and that kind of stuff. And I was like, start it now. Because if you start it now, when you graduate, they're going to see all this work you've put in. And they're going to be like, this kid is already ahead of the game.
Yeah. Like I had terrible, not terrible, but I did not have great grades, but it was clear that I like had enthusiasms that, I really pursued. But, but that podcast was great. Did Ben tell you about the best question that he asked Pete Rose?
I feel like he did, but I don't remember.
Go.
So the question was, well, you want to tell it?
Do you remember it, Ben? Do you remember what you asked?
I don't even remember the question.
You asked him, what ball would you like to have in your collection or in your hand? Like what ball from what game or whatever? And do you remember what he said?
I think he said the first hit, correct?
Correct. Yeah, first hit in a major league game.
No, he said his son's first hit.
I think that was probably the follow-up.
Okay.
That might have been. Yeah. But no, I remember that he said, and I forget how he put it, but he said, you're the ball that is definitely going to mean the most to you, or that he said kind of meant the most to him, was his first hit in a major league game, because it's like, well, I got here,
I made it.
Yeah. I got a hit. I got on base.
And now he has the most ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
But none of those guys will ever end up in the Hall of Fame, will they, Paul?
I mean, Pete Rose is a tough one. I think the steroid guys, it's so object. Like it's gonna come down to what people really think about the steroid era. But Pete Rose, I don't think Pete Rose will ever get in. Well, the only time he will, I think, would be, unfortunately, when he ultimately passes and people go, "This guy was so good at what he did, he deserves to be in there."
Okay, well, here's the other question. Do you think that the fact that gambling, which back then was, like anathema in baseball. The idea that he would bet on baseball, and now, good God,
It's probably a sponsor of baseball games.
it's absolutely a sponsor.
It is a sponsor.
You can't walk through a stadium without seeing probably millions of dollars worth of ads for gambling sites.
And I know recently the NFL just adjusted their suspension policy for gambling because they had a guy suspended for a year who didn't even bet on NFL games, I don't think. Or if he did, it wasn't his own team. And he was suspended for a year, and then you have somebody else suspended for a much serious thing for like 11 games. And
Right.
you're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Yeah,
Hold on.
because it's not like steroids. It's not like Major League Baseball is brought to you by Big Steroid or anything like that, right? But increasingly,
You see DraftKings,
Yeah.
FanDuel,
Oh my God.
Caesars, MGM.
I'm okay if you want to gamble, but you
Yeah.
can't gamble on your team,
No,
right?
right.
You can't.
Well, and that's the whole thing with Pete Rose was I don't remember exactly what he gambled on, but he never gambled
Jay,
on
do
his
you
team
know?
to lose. I know he never
Right.
gambled on his team to lose.
Right.
So therefore, if he's never betting on his team to lose, why let him in?
yeah, I mean, I kind of go back and forth on it because he was kind of Pete Rose, and he could be a little bit obnoxious at times. But now the gambling thing, you just have to wonder: has he kind of done his time? Has he done his penance now? Is it maybe time to say,
I feel like that's kind of
Okay.
how I feel about it.
yeah,
It's
you,
like
he was a great player without a doubt.
He's-
I grew up in Louisville. The Reds was like the major league franchise closest to us. So yeah.
Jay, did you find it? What he did get in trouble for? What or no?
No, I've been hit with 2 paywalls so far. I'll get back to you.
I think
Paywall.
I
You
think-
gotta support-
I think
support that
one of the
journalism.
things was actually when he was a manager.
Hey, the Times Union has a paywall, right?
We do. It's sort of you get as in all things that we want you to develop a habit on. First time's free, but no, you'll get a couple of stories over like I think it's a 40-day period before you hit the paywall.
But that's fair. You gotta make money for the
Yeah.
work you're putting in.
Right.
Do printed papers eventually go away, or will they always be here?
I mean, always is a very long time, right?
Right.
But
Let's say the next 10 years.
in the next 10 years, after 10 years, there will still be a printed newspaper. I'm pretty confident of that. Will it come out 7 days a week? Probably not. The Glens Falls Post-Star, which is a very good paper just north of here, just went down to, I think they're 3 days a week. 3 days a week, and now they're getting delivered through the mail.
Now, this is strictly financial because of people that are purchasing them.
What do you mean? People who purchase the entire
newspaper.
organization?
Or the newspaper, or they stock them in their stores, or if they get delivered to people's homes. That's why they're shrinking down.
I mean, look, some people will always want the printed copy of the paper. The printed copy of the paper is for them just the way they've always absorbed
like,
their
I can only
news.
read books as a book. I can't read on a Kindle
I'm
or
the
an
same.
iPad.
I'm exactly the same way. I do not want to read a book on a screen.
Jay, are you the same way, or can you read on a Kindle?
No, physical books only.
Yeah, only.
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
100%.
I can't read.
Paul, you guys, Paul's so great as a coach, and he writes great programs. But yeah, he can't read. We've been working on it, Paul.
Yeah, we've been trying.
Casey,
We've been trying.
I don't know
We'll
what
work
to
on
do
it.
anymore.
Although I am reading right now about Pete Rose.
Really?
Yes, and actual reading. He gambled as a manager when he was the manager of
Right.
the Reds.
Yeah.
And up to 50 games on the Reds. I don't think he ever bet on. I can't confirm this, but I don't think he ever bet on them to lose. But if you're betting,
No,
on
that's he always insisted that he never bet on them to lose.
But if you're betting on the spread, you can make decisions
Yeah.
to influence what that spread will be. Like
Right.
Patrick Mahomes sliding last week against the Jets screwed a lot of people over because he didn't score a touchdown there.
yeah, it's problematic. He shouldn't have done it. There's no question about it. Without a
Not
doubt.
Patrick Mahomes, Pete Rose.
Yeah, Pete Rose. Yes. Yeah. But yeah. No, it's
Sorry,
it's
I
interesting.
was like, I gotta fucking.
You had to
look this up.
prove to people that you could read.
that too.
Good
yeah.
job, Paul.
Yeah.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. I love to read now way more than I was in school. They just give you books, and I wasn't interested. So
I'm definitely more interested in reading now than I was in school.
Yeah.
You too, Casey?
I still don't read a lot.
Yeah, I'm a big reader without a doubt, but I almost like bookstores more than I like reading, you know?
It's like going to the store.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. No, because I love a really good bookstore. I even more love a really good used bookstore. I have dragged Ben into God knows how many bookstores, and he's been very, very patient with me, my wife as well. But and because of course you walk into a bookstore, you're not just buying the book, you're buying what you expect is going to be the unlimited, the unused time that you're going to be able to sit somewhere and read that book. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
In other words, when you buy a book, you are essentially saying, I am going to have 8 hours or however long the book is of maybe not uninterrupted time, but at least free time that I'm going to be able to concentrate on this. And that is like that's once again, it's kind of that dopamine hit of, oh yes, I'll be able to relax and just suck this book
That's
down.
a better dopamine hit than your social media
I
feed.
think if I think
much
of
better.
reading in that
Yes,
time frame of like,
that-
oh, it's going to take me 8 hours to
Jordan,
read it, instead
right?
of like, oh, it's going to take me a freaking month to read this.
Well, do you try to like consume a book as a book on tape? Have you tried that?
I have tried that,
Yeah.
but then I get distracted.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you can hit pause and come back to it.
Yeah. So I think that, but when you say it like that, like, oh, it takes me 8 hours to read this, not a month to read this or whatever it is,
Yeah.
3 weeks to read it.
Yeah, maybe
It's
it
like,
takes you a month to go
you
through
know,
it, but okay.
But in all actuality, it was 8 hours. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, all right.
What-
You just helped me. Maybe I'll
What's
be
your
able to read a little
go-to
more.
used bookstores around here? Do you have any?
Well, Dove and Hudson in Albany.
Jordy, you know that?
That's the best
Oh
one.
yeah, it's the best. It is. It's great.
It's really well curated. The guy's great.
It's
Cheap.
wonderfully well curated. Great mystery section. Really good fiction, and it's just a nice, quiet space.
When's the last time you were there, Jay?
Couple months.
Yeah.
I was ready for Jordan to say like last weekend.
I was there like a couple of weeks ago, and it was filled with young people. Like there were young people who were talking books the whole time. I said to the owner, it's like, this is great. This place is like packed with young people. Do you feel like you're running the vinyl store at a record shop or something like that? But that's a great shop. There are all kinds of great book barns around here, like Owl Pen, which is right north of Greenwich, is terrific and worth like checking out. The Rogers Book Barn down outside of Hillsdale, down off the Taconic, is really wonderful too. So, yeah, we got a bunch around here.
What's the last thing you picked up from there, Jay? You recall?
Oh yeah, I always go and refresh. I just cycle through Kurt Vonnegut books,
Oh yeah,
so go and refresh. That's what I picked up last time.
Yeah.
They're so affordable. He marks them down. I don't know, $5 to $10 for paperback.
oh
like
yeah.
that.
They're not like they're not horribly dog-eared. Schenectady's own Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
he worked. He
That's
was like
right.
he was a
GE.
PR guy for GE for a long time.
There was recently, actually, today's Friday, so yesterday. This won't be loaded till next week, but yesterday, Thursday, there was the 60 years of banned books like presentation.
Yeah,
And we actually had one of our clients, shout out Dr. G, he presented or was there for it. I don't know if he presented, but he was definitely there for it. And he was just like, some of the books that they ban, like, it's like, I'm just trying to read. Like, I'm just trying to read what was written. And I understand certain things for age appropriate, yada, yada, yada. But
Yeah.
it's like, dude, it was written. Why not let me read it?
Well, we're yeah, and it's crazy some of the books that have been subject to these bans. And of course, just north of here, there was this case where a library shut down because almost the entire staff quit because they were allegedly getting so much harassment from people who were appalled because they had a drag queen story hour at the Rockwell Falls Library up around Lake Luzerne, and that kind of thing is disturbing. That's now a town without a library, or at least a library that's I don't think it can be open nearly as much as it was before. And yeah, I mean, it's those kinds of things, and the Times Union covers them a lot, kind of constitute what we call moral panics, where people think, my God, if we allow this to happen, society is going to collapse within 6 months.
But that's people with their extreme views. Like
Correct.
no, I feel like if everybody sat down and had a conversation, you're going to find somewhat of a middle ground. But you go on the internet and you're going to have these two extremes. With that, you name the political argument or topic, and you're going to have these two extremes. We're like, really, everybody could probably find somewhere in the middle. That's okay.
And
That's why I love to sit right in the middle.
Right, but the thing is, and I've watched some of these library board meetings over the course of the last couple of months from this small town, and the meetings just turn into scream fests because you get people showing up there who are sure that the library staff is just there to hypnotize your child and turn them into who knows what.
Yeah, I mean, I remember during the real height of COVID, school board meetings where people will say this was just a shouting match between everybody. I'm like, can't we just make sure our kids can learn some stuff this year? And
yeah, and people saying well, the only reason you want masks on kids is so the kids can't warn somebody that they're being kidnapped. I mean, that was literally something that somebody said at a school board meeting, that if kids are masked, they're not able to sort of mouth a message to the adults that they're about to be kidnapped. I'm like, can you describe to me the situation in which this might happen?
Yeah, it's these extreme wild views. People like conspiracy theories. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. I think it's fun. Yeah.
I mean, listen, some conspiracy theories are a little fun to explore.
Aliens and dangerous. Yes.
Yeah, and there's not at least once a week I go up to somebody in the gym like, hey,
I talk about aliens weekly.
I got a question for you. You think aliens are real?
Yeah.
It's yeah, they're fun. All
right, so can we go around the horn
Go.
and say everybody's favorite conspiracy theory?
Ooh.
Favorite, the craziest, or favorite, let's talk about it.
Just one that you think is bottomlessly fascinating. You don't have to believe in it, but the one that you think, my God, I can't believe, or I'm kind of into it, or I want to know more about it.
Mine would be Kennedy.
Kennedy assassination.
The CIA's involved, or Lee Harvey Oswald didn't shoot him. Yeah, that's mine.
The Kennedy one is definitely up there. Because I watched what's the TV show? There was a book. James Franco was in it.
Yeah, it's a Stephen King.
Oh,
book.
11/23/63.
Yes.
11/22/63.
Yes, that right. I watched that show, and that made me go, wow, what really happened? So I'd say probably the same thing as him, but also what fascinates me is people that think 9/11 was a conspiracy.
Oh,
right.
I don't think it is, but the people that do, I go, really? Really? You really think that?
Jay?
Oh, I'm endlessly entertained by flat Earth people.
I know. Okay,
that's what I was going to say. Flat
too.
Earth people. They're a different breed.
That is the best. Flat Earth people are just fantastic.
Wait, speaking of that, did you see the video of the people that are flat Earth people that proved they were trying to prove the Earth was flat,
have seen that.
but they proved that it wasn't
with
flat?
a shadow or
That's the
something,
wildest one, because we're not the only country that's been in space. So that means that everybody is together to hey.
I know. You've seen pictures. Well, yeah, pictures. Where do you think the sun is coming from? Do you think it's just rising up on one side and then it goes down the other side? But
What's yours?
Flat. You can't beat flat Earth. I mean, that's the goat without a doubt.
For sure.
But I love, just as a kind of piece of performance art, the birds aren't real guys. Have you heard about these
Birds
guys?
are spies. Birds aren't real.
Birds aren't real. Yeah.
What's that mean?
What does that mean?
It's a group. They're pranksters, but they're really good at it. That are convinced that birds are surveillance devices that have been set among us just to keep an eye on. It's government control, and they hold the joke so well. They really hold it well, and they've got T-shirts and they've got bumper stickers and everything. Birds aren't real. Check it out.
It's got to be QAnon.
QAnon is an example of dangerous conspiracy
Right.
theory that is like
It
truly
is, it
eating
is a
the
conspiracy
minds.
theory. The whole thing.
It is just eating the minds of people, and it's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's the internet, and you get back in the day, crazy people from everywhere, they couldn't connect with each
Exactly.
other. Now, crazy
I
people from
know.
everywhere can connect with each other.
And our democracy hasn't yet figured out how to deal with it, because every time somebody says, "Hey, maybe we ought to have some kind of organization that points out what's disinformation," people are like, "How dare you, obstruct our free speech?" And
Which is it really free speech if it's false?
yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely free speech.
But could you ever have something that's not biased that can truly declare what is legitimate and what isn't legitimate?
Yeah.
You could.
Wait, what do you? We're getting real metaphysical here.
Could you have an
but-
organization that like doesn't have a bias towards certain things that can say, hey, this is real or this is fake?
No, but you can have an organization that says, "Hey, look, here's the work we do to try to determine what is actually
Right.
true."
Right.
Here's how our organization worked to determine whether or not the Earth actually is flat, for
Right.
example, and that kind of thing. And look, I'm not volunteering for that, but that's what journalists do. It goes back to those things I tried to the SPJ code of ethics. Seek the truth and report it fully. Seek the truth means you actually have to go out and do the work, right? Report it fully.
Get the resources. Get the
Right.
Yeah.
get the information that is real.
Act independently. Don't let anybody buy your opinion for you. There was so much about Fox News. There has been so much reported on how Fox News was like, we can't say we think Joe Biden won because our viewers are going to get really upset about that. That is not acting independently.
Right.
Minimize harm, which means don't report something on somebody that you think is going to do undue damage to them when you have another another way to go about it. And what's the other one? Act independently. Be accountable. So when somebody says, "Hey, you got that wrong," it's not 15, it's 22. You don't just say, "How dare you?" It's whatever we say it is. You got to look into it. You've got to say, "You know what? We got it wrong. We got it wrong. We made a mistake. We're going to correct it. We're going to do what we can to correct it. Thank you for pointing it out."
Yeah.
So
I mean, as a sports guy, I don't watch the news as much. I watch sports news more because the news is depressing a little bit. But when I get somebody on there that says I was wrong, X, Y, and Z, they're holding themselves accountable. It makes me respect them more as a analyst or reporter
sure.
on that topic, much more than somebody that goes, "I'm going to stick by what I said," even though all of these things are proving it wrong. And I'd rather see somebody admit when they're wrong than when try to stick by what they said, even though they know they're wrong.
Yeah. In every other aspect of human life, being able to say, "I made a mistake, I'm wrong," and admitting it and owning it is a mark of character.
Mhm.
And it's kind of sometimes it's only in the realm of politics where it's seen as being, "Oh, that guy's a sucker." Why would he or she ever, apologize and admit that they were wrong? But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's probably people with egos. What's the most fun story you've ever covered? Like you were just into it the most and you enjoyed researching?
Oh God, that's a good question.
This isn't on our list of questions.
It's not on your list of questions.
No,
You're
I'm sorry,
totally,
Casey. I
you're-
just thought
you're
of it
totally
when we were
springing one
talking.
on me. I mean, I worked for a long time on this. This isn't the most fun, but I think it's sort of the most perhaps memorable story that I worked on. I worked on. I got a tip that a woman in Texas had accused a former state senator of sexually assaulting her, and she had filed a sheriff's report, but then had said that she didn't want to press charges because she was kind of concerned about the guy's influence. And this was a guy I had covered when he was a state senator in New York, and now he lived in this small town in Texas. And I pursued this story for probably, 2.5 months. And it was before Me Too. It was before Harvey Weinstein. So the blueprint of how to go about reporting a story like that, especially with a guy who was super litigious. This guy's lawyer was Joe Tacopina, who was Trump's lawyer in the the recent civil suit brought by E. Jean Carroll against him, which Trump lost. He was A-Rod's attorney, I think, as well, when he had his difficulties. And so I spoke to the woman. I said, I would like to report this story. I need your help because I need to try to corroborate your account, because I had the document. So that was like an official document that she had made, her sheriff's report. And I need to talk to everybody you spoke to about this. Like the next day, did you tell anybody? Did you send emails to anybody? And so I tried to check everything that she gave me. And of course, I had to reach out to this guy. I had to reach out to one of his aides who was with him that night, both of whom denied that any kind of assault happened. And that, of course, went into the story. And there was a point where, as I was kind of checking her story, she said, I don't like that you're doing this. It feels like you don't believe me. And I said, it's absolutely not that I don't believe you. It's my responsibility to you, as well as to the guy you're accusing and to my readers, for me to try to make sure I'm getting this right. And at the end of that reporting, I've never been more nervous, when I knew a story was going to be published, because I thought, oh God, this guy's going to sue me. And even though I thought the story was bulletproof, and so it was published. And I remember the morning it was published, I remember I was at Ben's game and I looked at my phone and it appeared, I think you hit the cycle. It was down in Ravenna. It was down in Ravenna. It was down. Do you remember that? Yeah. It was in Ravenna.
I feel like Casey has a photographic memory right now.
No, it was Ravenna. It was a Saturday morning. You hit for the cycle, and so that was great. And also, the minute the story was published, I was like, done. It's over. And the woman that happened to, she and I still check in kind of every couple of months, and it's just like, hey, how are you doing? How's your family? And that's a really good feeling that somebody shared with you the worst thing that ever happened to them, and you told it. I told it as carefully and as fairly as I could, and that for people who go through that, if their stories are told, the impact of that terrible thing on them is diminished. That's what every study says. So that really, if I think I'm an okay journalist, it's stories like that. Now, I work with people who have, dozens of stories like that they worked on, that they remember, and that really move them. And those are the kind of stories that you really hope for. But that's a story that I worked on for 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours invested, probably.
Yeah, and just should this be a period? Should this be a question mark? Stuff like that. So, yeah.
Is that the longest story longest time you spent working on a story, or is there one longer than that?
Probably. Okay. There have been stories that I've kind of nibbled away on for a long time, but that was the one that I was like, from the moment I said, I really think this should be a story, to when it was published, that's probably the longest span of time. But I've worked on stories that had really complex, public records that I had to check out, and also stories that I've written multiple stories on that went on for, years, or even months, or even years.
Right, but that's the one isolated incident.
That's just the one that stands out, that I'm like, well, that's about as good as I can do.
Yeah.
Ben, what stands out to you?
Mike, the photographic memory, I think, is a good way to describe it.
Do you have a photographic memory?
He does not have a photographic memory, but one of the kind of, I guess, to me it's weird skills that you have is if you can name a movie in, say, the 80s or the 90s, or even from basically when you have a memory to now, he could basically tell you the location of the city he was in.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Top
he
Gun,
was at,
right now.
what movie.
Louisville,
theater.
Kentucky, Cinema 4 in Showcase Cinemas.
I didn't know Top Gun's American classic.
You could rattle off we could sit here all night.
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption. I saw it at, I forget the name of the theater, but it was in Burlington, and it was out off of Winooski Road, which is just basically east of UVM.
What's our time frame? What's our time frame right
80s,
now?
90s. Go one more.
I mean, really, from pretty much, I started going to the movies by myself.
Godfather.
Godfather I saw on TV
Okay.
before
Scarface, did you see on TV too?
No, I saw it. That was Showcase Cinema 1 in, once again, Louisville, Kentucky, where I did most of my growing up. On opening weekend, mind you.
You should have saw that on opening weekend. So I'm proud
Yeah.
of you for that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, early 80s, pretty much every major movie I
People
saw
will
opening
ask me
weekend.
my favorite movies of all time, and it's hard for me to name like one, but Shawshank always ends up in my top like two or three. Top two or three.
Okay, well, have you read the book that it's based on, or the novella that it's based on?
We're asking Paul about reading.
You're asking me
again.
about reading?
Okay.
So no.
I'm telling you. But I'll tell you something. So that is I was a huge
I should read it.
huge Stephen King fan when I was a kid. So, and I'm still a huge Stephen King fan. He's a great, terrific writer. Absolutely terrific writer. I mean it.
Mm-hmm.
But so Shawshank Redemption is one of the 4 novellas in a collection that came out in, God, I think it was 83 maybe, called Different Seasons. And all 4 of those are stone classics. Do you remember Stand By Me?
Vaguely, yes.
Okay, Stand By Me is based on another novella that was in Different Seasons.
Okay. I definitely like Shawshank partially. I watched like in high school, my senior year. We watched it in our film and literature class. We probably read the freaking book. I just don't remember since it was film and literature. But I remember watching it and be like, "This is the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life."
Great. It's
like
a
I remember
perfect
just sitting
movie.
there watching it and just be like, "This is so good." And I'm 17. at
Can
the
there
time.
ever be a movie like that made again?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like now all the box office stuff is like Marvel.
Listen,
or
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, true.
Oppenheimer
was great.
That was
I thought
well
it was
done.
terrific.
But Christopher Nolan's awesome. So
You
Yeah.
still go to the movie theater?
I do. I don't go as much as I used to. Now I'm trying to think what was the last movie that I saw in the movie theater. I saw Barbie.
Oppenheimer was my last one.
Yeah, I think I saw Barbie after Oppenheimer. What did I just go see?
Did you hear the explosion of Oppenheimer during Barbie?
Yes.
Because there was
Yeah.
in one theater somewhere at the climax of like the Barbie movie,
You could
that-
hear.
you could hear the explosion from the Oppenheimer movie during it, and it like timed up perfectly.
That's a Christopher Nolan. I've been.
Oppenheimer
is
yeah,
Christopher
Nolan, yes.
Yeah.
Not Barbie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd
God,
be a crazy Barbie if it was
That would be a
Christopher Nolan.
sick Barbie movie.
I think Barbie is the last movie I saw in a theater. That's sad. But
Yeah, we need to fix that.
yeah, I know, really.
People say it was good though.
Well, Stop Making Sense is in theaters this weekend. The Talking Heads concert film.
But somebody in here saw that and
Yeah.
was like, "You guys." She's like, "I went and saw it and it was great." and
Oh,
you
it's
guys should."
great.
What's the one I brought up the other day? The Scorsese one. The
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the one. That's the one I probably will see next in theaters.
Right. Yeah, I'll go see that in theaters without a doubt.
Because I used to be a big movie. I'd go to the movies like literally almost every week or every other
What was your go-to theater?
I mean,
The Crandall.
the Crandall was my
In
go-to.
Chatham?
No
In Chatham.
kidding,
In
really?
Chatham. Well, that's where we grew up.
Yeah, we're all Chatham guys.
All right.
Chatham guys. But
Because
then,
that's like great because they have a really good sense of like film history because you could get classic movies there and they do all
and
the
it was
art
like
house stuff.
$5.
Cheap.
Yeah,
It probably
I know.
still is pretty cheap.
Probably
I
it's
haven't
like
been there in years.
$6 now.
I've never seen a movie at the Crandall.
Yeah, that's
It was a good. I don't know. I haven't been there in 15 years, but it was the spot
gotta
growing
go.
up.
yeah.
It was
That's
the
where
spot growing up.
that's where I went on my first date with Sam. My wife was to Crandall.
What was the movie?
Sam's gonna. She's not
What?
gonna. If she
Don't
listens,
remember?
Yeah, if she
It was your
listens.
first date. You don't
yeah,
remember the movie?
yeah,
What'd
if
you
she
go
listens,
see?
Sam will remember
if she
it.
listens, she's not making it this
Oh,
far,
man.
anyways. I don't remember what it is.
We're gonna go. What year was it?
Yeah, I think I know what it is.
Was it Spider-Man?
No, I think it's an old movie, and I'm probably gonna get teased for this. Paul, pull up Google. Is this is this movie called Day Lovely? Is that a real movie?
To Lovely?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about isn't that about Cole
2000
Porter?
2004 is
Yeah,
correct year.
That's it. That's it.
It's about
That's the
it's
movie.
about
Lovely.
Kevin Kline as Cole Porter. Yeah.
That's the movie it was.
Yeah.
2004.
Yep,
Right, Paul?
Cole Porter, Kevin Kline
Yeah.
as Cole Porter, Ashley Judd as Linda Porter.
I don't remember because I was so terrified if I was gonna like hold her hand or not. I was like 14 years old, so I don't remember anything about the movie.
That's a pretty classy damn date movie for a 14-year-old.
Dude,
you
I
know?
I don't know what
Do
I
you
was
want to go see this new film about the life of Cole Porter?
saying. I didn't know what I was doing, Casey.
All right.
But yeah, we
Do
made
you
it.
know now?
If what I'm doing?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Doing my best.
It's okay. We're doing our best.
That's all.
Yeah.
Do you get your sci-fi fix still?
Yeah, I would say so. I was trying to think, like, one of the questions you were posing was about like best TV shows.
Yeah.
And like, I would say one of the most enjoyable, sort of comfort food shows I've seen is the Last of Us, the HBO, fungus apocalypse.
I enjoyed that show
I thought
a lot.
that was really well done.
Me too.
Yeah.
And Jordan's a big video game. He writes for IGN.
Okay.
So,
All right. Yeah.
So you probably played the game.
Yeah,
I
I
never
played the game. Watched
I've
the show,
never
loved the show.
played the game, so I didn't know the
Okay.
narrative. You know.
Yeah,
Are you a
and
gamer?
it's-
How true does it hold?
No,
Jay?
the last game I was a gamer for, Ben knows this, is BioShock.
Oh, it's my favorite game ever.
Yeah, no, it's
Like ever,
it's great.
like top,
Favorite,
like number
my
one.
favorite video game.
BioShock or BioShock Ultimate. Is the Ultimate is the one set in the city in the sky?
Infinite.
Infinite. Thank you. Yes.
also
yeah.
great. I like the
That's
original
also
more.
really good.
Yeah.
I've never gone all the way to the end of Infinite, but I have gone to the end of the original
you- can
BioShock.
you
Okay,
go
that's
to the
not
end
too
of
far
Infinite?
back. 2007, I think that was.
16 years ago.
That's
still feel like that.
in terms of video games, I feel like that's like the
Sure,
Paleolithic
it's
era.
still relevant though, I guess. It still comes up in conversations
And
about
I'm
top
stunned.
games.
They're making so many like crap movies out of video games, and that's one that has like a really good narrative to it.
There's,
I can't believe
Netflix bought not a script, but they bought like the rights to make a movie, and they're working on it.
really,
I believe so.
Of BioShock.
Yeah, and I think they hired a screenwriter. Let me look.
huh? Yeah, because I can't believe that's a game that scared me. It excited me. I thought it was visually just dazzling.
Political intrigue. I thought it was
A
really
lot
well
of
written.
political intrigue. I get the feeling like that could be like a book that you read again. I've probably been away from it long enough that if I come back, I would still enjoy it. You know?
But Jay, The Last of Us held true to the game, like how
Yeah,
they did the
very much
storyline.
so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Well,
Yeah, it's
who's
a great
who's
game.
the actor in that?
Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal, yeah.
Name something bad he's done.
Oh no, I think
You-
he's charming and
I
everything.
don't think you can. Like
Yeah.
he's literally done so many good TV shows. Or
He's
been
really
in.
good.
Have you seen Chernobyl that the Last of Us man did before that?
No, but that's been highly
Excellent.
recommended to me.
I recommend it as well.
I've got to check that out because I love Jared Harris. I'll see anything with Jared Harris
Yeah.
in it. That guy's great.
Yeah.
And The Bear is the other TV show that I really
The
like.
Bear's
recently.
so
Oh,
good.
I've never
we-
watched it, but I've
Well, because
thought
we
about
watched Shameless, so I forget. I don't know the actor's name, but he was like one of the brothers in Shameless.
Oh yeah, the guy who plays cousin in the kind of ne'er do well, best friend who's not quite family, but he's almost family.
Yeah. So we did the whole first season of The Bear, and it's fantastic. And we started the second season. Jay, we did the first 2 episodes. I get home one night after work. Sam's like, "Let's do The Bear." We put it on, and we turn on the episode. And I'm like, this is a weird storyline. Like, I don't know why. Like, this just seems like it doesn't fit. I feel like I missed some things, but whatever. We put on Hulu just jumped it right to the finale, and we just hit play,
Yikes.
and we watched the whole finale.
Oh no, you got to go back.
So I haven't gone back yet.
Did you see the Christmas dinner episode?
I saw episode 1 and 2, and then episode 10 or whatever the finale is when they're doing the final, meal.
You got to go back because it's the Christmas dinner episode and the one right after that where that character cousin sort of discovers he kind of hits his groove being kind of a impresario at the restaurant, which is great because it's like a tribute to Michael Mann, who's one of my favorite filmmakers. The guy who did Heat and Collateral and Thief and all those great movies. Ben, I've forced Ben to watch all of these movies.
So
several
so
times.
he's cultured, which is good.
Yeah, gotta raise him right.
When he was the entertainment editor, we used to one of my favorite things was bragging to my friends at school that we used to be able to go to movies before anybody else went to movies.
Yeah.
That's so cool, though.
That's awesome.
Right? That's like I feel like that's a very elementary school brag. Like
yeah,
my
100%.
dad.
So
That's
you,
a high school brag. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
you would get access to screenings.
I
and you would get-
they would give you like the passes to the press screenings, and I would bring Ben along. The one that I always regretted was that I took him to go see Beowulf. Do you remember like the kind of it was Angelina Jolie was
Yes.
like Grendel's mother,
Okay.
in Beowulf, and it was pretty scary.
How old was Ben? Did you get scared?
I think you were probably 6, 7 at
Oh,
that point.
Ben.
Whenever Beowulf came out, you might have even been younger than that.
How tall was Ben at 6 or 7 years old? That's what I want to know. My height?
Ben was, Ben would completely, he would have these like growth spurts where he would like shoot up, and it was kind of like, eat a lot, get taller, eat a lot, get taller, eat a lot, get taller. And now look at him, 6'6".
It worked.
Strapping.
He's got great legs, from what somebody said in here.
Somebody said that?
They did.
Ben,
They did.
That's cool.
One of our clients was like, we were talking about like who was on tonight and trying to explain like, Ben's relationship and who Ben was, and we're like, yeah, he's like 6'6", he's a giant. He's like, he's got good legs, right? He's like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, I know that kid trained good because he's 6'6" and he's got good legs.
I mean,
and I guarantee you can think of who we're talking about. As soon as I say it, you'll be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Tell me off air.
I will.
I can't think right now.
yeah. I mean, look, he's always obviously been in very, very good shape, but I think Ben would tell you that his last year at Indiana, he probably had the best training, best conditioning that he's probably ever had. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think definitely. I went to Siena College, for those people who don't know, for 4 years. And it was just tough there because we would only have 3 strength coaches for, all whatever it is, 20 teams at Siena. And then you go to Indiana and your strength coach is with you from July when you drop me off to when the season ended, the last game. And that's his only job, was to be with our team. And we had 10 interns that would walk around and clean up your weight for you. And
we don't do that here.
you guys don't do that here. I'm not complaining about it, because the first time one of them tried to do it, I was like, you guys don't have to do this for me. And they were like, no, like, your job's to lift the weight that's like on the rack, not like. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's like when I lived in Boston and I would go golfing with clients at like nice country clubs, and the guys come right over to the car, they take your bags out, they're washing stuff,
Yeah.
and you feel like uncomfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I got it when I went to go visit Ben. I guess it was in January. I got like the whole tour of the weight room and all of the athletic, facilities that are kind of underneath the stands in the football stadium. And it's like, for athletes, it's like Club Med. It was just insane.
Yeah, it's awesome. Do you feel like, Ben, though it was important for you as like a person to leave here, to leave upstate New York?
I mean, I've only known growing up in Albany, New York for 22 years of my life, but I think I've always had like an affinity for this place. Like, I never thought like, damn, I can't wait to leave Albany, New York. I need to get out of here. That
Right.
was never what I thought, because, I think him working in news, I heard obviously a lot of bad things, but also a lot of like really good stories. And I love the community that I'm from, the Pine Hills neighborhood. And I, grew up going to Siena baseball camp and going to watch the basketball team at the TU Center and now the MVP Arena. Sorry, Dad.
That's okay. They're paying.
Yeah. And so, Siena made me a good scholarship offer, and I knew, how it was as a school, and I kind of knew exactly what I was going to get there. But I definitely thought after my 4 years there, I wanted to stretch myself baseball-wise. And it didn't have to be Indiana. I was never like, I want to go to Indiana. I don't think there's a lot of people that say that statement anyway.
Well, people in Indiana do.
Sure.
Do
yeah.
they?
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd be surprised.
I applied. It was one of the 6 schools I applied to.
Well, yeah, but you're like a Midwest guy, I guess I would say. But no, I think it was good for me, like, to be out on my own.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, just to be on your own.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the first time I really grew up wasn't when I went to college at Springfield. It was when I moved to Boston, and I was like on my own in
Sure.
an apartment. Like, family was not really it was a drive away, but like it wasn't just going to be like a quick drive away. Yeah, I feel like getting away was an important part.
But I think part of me knew it was only going to be really for 1 year. And then,
Right.
I mean, obviously I want to play professional baseball, but knowing that kind of Albany is my place in the off season, I knew it was kind of going to be my 1 year to kind of get out and do my thing. And I mean, it was awesome. I really enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, I was really glad that he got that experience for all the reasons you're suggesting, that you moved to Boston, you didn't have family there. I mean, did you have a lot of friends there, or?
I had to make. I had my
That's-
girlfriend at the time, who's not
Yeah.
my wife, but I had to make friends and make a new social life and make a new routine.
Right.
And
You show up in a place, nobody knows you, and you sort of define who you are,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
by the friends you make and the work you do and all that stuff. I mean, that's
Sure.
that's key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think me career-wise, it definitely going to New York City was like the biggest thing. It's like, all right, I was a bigger fish in a small pond in Pittsfield. Now I'm just one of everybody else. But then hearing people at the gym I worked at in the middle of New York City say like, you're really good at what you do. You know
Yeah.
what you're doing, like X, Y, and Z. It's like, all right. And then I was forced to come back home because of COVID, which ended up being a blessing in disguise. And now I'm here. And all the things I learned there, on top of the things I've learned since I've come here, have just culminated into what it is now. And definitely getting away and experiencing something outside of what you're used to is a huge benefit for you as an adult when you go into like real life.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
How much of the Nexium cult did you cover? You were saying you did a podcast?
Well, we did a podcast when it's actually called Nexium on Trial, and it was after Keith Raniere and his sort of inner circle had been arrested. So I didn't report on, and I didn't edit any Nexium stories until sort of after the Times Union had done its big series on Nexium, which was called Secrets of Nexium, which came out in 2012. And that was the one that said, we've spoken to women who say that Keith Raniere had creepy relationships with underage women, that he's controlling, that he acts very much like a cult leader. And those were stories by Jim O'Dotto and Jen Gish, who did it for like our investigative unit. And those stories were incredibly difficult to report because obviously, like the story that I just told, imagine having like 8 women who you have to kind of try and
And this is 2012. When was he arrested? What year was that?
2017.
So this is before all that even goes down.
So we put out these stories and we thought, well, clearly law enforcement is going to look into this. You know, the district attorney, state police, federal investigator, somebody is going to look into this. Nobody looked into it. And this is only my theory, but when these stories came out and Keith Raniere, the leader of Nexium, the guy who called himself Vanguard within the organization, people came to him within Nexium and said, "Oh, Keith, are these true?" And Keith said, "This is all a lie. You know, where the people are out to get us." And in the end, nobody really followed up. Nobody in law enforcement went after this in any kind of very energetic way at all. I genuinely believe when Keith Raniere got away with that, survived that, he thought, all right, let's see what else we can get up into. And that is when he decided to form this, creepy sort of Ponzi scheme style sex cult within Nexium, which was called DOS, or that was the acronym. And that was the stuff, the brand, branding women, collecting blackmail material, keeping a woman a virtual captive within one of the rooms in their compound. That was the stuff that ended up bringing on, finally, and it was a story in the New York Times that broke that news, the really good story that we of course followed up on, but they broke that story. That is what brought the attention, not of federal prosecutors up around here, but federal prosecutors in what's known as the Eastern District, which is sort of Brooklyn and Long Island. And they brought charges against Raniere. He was scooped up in Mexico. His inner circle got arrested. His inner circle all pleaded guilty. Raniere went to trial and ended up being found guilty of all the charges against him. And he will be in prison, absent something super weird happening. He'll be in prison until he is very old or even after that. So I didn't work on Secrets of Nexium. I just read it, with goggle eyes like every other reader did when it appeared in the paper. But I edited a lot of the subsequent stories about Nexium that Jim O'Dotto did. And they were same kind of thing, very careful. All of those stories, because Nexium was an incredibly litigious organization who would go after their enemies, sick lawyers on them like that. And they would just make you go blind. I work for, back then when the paper was edited by Rex Smith, it was very brave. of the paper to do these stories. We had the support of our publisher, George Hurst, and the entire Hearst Corporation, which has like a couple of floors of lawyers. And the best of those lawyers would go over those stories and say, okay, where did we get this? Can we use this person's name? Do we have this backed up by a legal document? Is this based on an actual interview? Have you checked your notes or the recording of that interview? Just going through like every line with a fine-tooth comb to make sure those stories were, you're not going to be able to eliminate legal risk, but you can reduce it. And we still do that. We have done that with stories. The process is called lawyering, to send the story out, and the lawyers will come back and say, they don't tell you that you can or can't do something. They just give you advice on how risky it is to do something.
Right.
And it's a great journalistic process because the lawyers that we work with are really good because they want you to report the toughest possible story you can. They just want you to be aware of the legal risks of doing that and to think about that before you actually put it in the paper.
Yeah, it probably makes you like make sure you have the right sources and make sure you've written things properly based on conversation, and it's a good filter.
It's a remarkable filter. It ain't easy,
No, I'm sure not.
and it's expensive without a doubt. But it took that's why with all that effort that the Times Union put into those stories back in 2012, the fact that law enforcement just basically said, oh well, that's maddening. And I know for a fact that there are numerous law enforcement entities around here who for a long time will regret the fact that they didn't do a little bit more digging on that. Because I think a lot of them just shrugged their shoulders and said, this is all something these women signed up for. So what are you going to do? People are crazy.
Jesus,
So-
that's crazy. Yeah, I kind of had heard about it, and then I watched The Vow on HBO.
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
I did.
Yeah, and I was like, holy shit, like this is right here. Like I know this place, and I know that place, and
Yeah. I liked The Vow. I thought it was good. I did kind of get mad at it because they kind of acted like, oh, nobody knew. And
right here you are. I mean, reported in 2012 on.
exactly. I was pissed off for the Times Union that nobody was saying, hey, wait a minute. You can't say that you didn't know about this. There's this whole series. They mentioned it, but it was mentioned just kind of very much in passing, and everybody just kind of shrugged and said, well, Keith explained it was all a big lie. So
Right.
it was wacky.
Yeah. What's the biggest stuff you're working on right now, or upcoming, or who knows? You see where things would.
I
things fall.
mean, we are obviously following up on this terrible abduction and rescue, thank goodness, is going to be a big story going forward. I mean, our investigative team is working on stuff, obviously, that I won't talk about, but those guys are always chasing down something good, covering the migrant crisis and its effect on communities around here as well as the rest of the state. That is a big political issue right now, both locally and in places like Rotterdam, where migrants have moved into these kind of transitory motels. That's a big story we'll continue to follow. Josh Solomon, who's one of our Capitol reporters, just a couple of weeks ago, basically his reporting forced the exit of the CEO of DocGo, which is the company that is kind of doing logistics for New York City. And Josh discovered that his resume, was not exactly correct in all particulars about his education, and that helped kind of force his ouster, and or at least his resignation from DocGo.
Who was the one politician guy in New York who just lied about everything?
George Santos. Yeah.
Everything.
That's crazy. I mean, he's out on Long Island, so he's really not our
Right.
he's not our guy. But
I'm gonna pee quick while you guys finish.
Go
this.
pee,
Alright.
Paul. Yeah, go.
I gotta get Mike out of my way. That's the only thing.
Here, I'll slide over. Sneak out here, Paul. Yeah, I remember that every week. It was like, well, this isn't true, and this isn't true, and
so there's a really good Long Island reporter, a Newsday reporter, who is writing a book about George Santos that comes out in a couple of weeks, and he's actually going to be in Albany, and I think I'm going to interview. He's going to be at the Times Union, and I think I'm going to be the one who interviews him. I'm really looking forward to having that discussion because that story is crazy.
Yeah, it was like where he went to college, right? Wasn't real. You name it. I feel like
Virtually,
was fake.
virtually
Everything.
nothing about him was as he said it during the campaign. He said he was, a badass, business guy. And
Listen, ready? We can wrap up tonight here with politics and with entertainment. You're just dealing with
the combo.
the combo of craziness. And then you have, how much did you cover the Antonio Brown thing at all in Albany or no?
I mean, I was, I
Witnessed it like all of us?
I edited, I sort of oversaw our sports department's excellent coverage of that. And I give a lot of credit to Abigail Rebel, who covered it until, gosh, I guess she moved down to the city in May. And then Mark Singelays, who's our just outstanding veteran, machine of a sports writer. And we actually had an intern who got to cover sort of the last phases or just a couple of the final stories of Antonio Brown. That's one of the stories of the year. It was so bizarre.
100%. We all knew where that was headed, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Apparently management of the Albany Empire didn't know where it was headed.
We knew quick, Jay.
Yeah.
We
Yeah. Go
we
ahead.
share this?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, we're a local podcast. I'm trying to grow. I just like to talk to people. I'm trying to make this something in the community where people who are, figures in the community can come and just have an open forum to talk. So AB, whatever, joins the Empire. And I go, hey, I own a business. I just shoot my shot and see what happens all the time.
Yeah.
10% of the time.
Don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, 10% of the time, something
Yeah.
happens. 90% nothing, but I'll take my 10% every day. I go, let me email the email on AB's Instagram. Hey, my name's Mike Serrani. I own a gym. We have a podcast. Our audience is very local. I'd love to talk to AB about what Albany meant to him growing up and what his plans are for the Empire and kind of tie those two things together. I get a phone call in 2 minutes. It's a number I don't know, so I don't answer it.
Oh.
Voicemail
Yeah.
from some guy. It's not AB.
Was it Al Baroni Dennis?
I don't
No,
know.
it was
It
it was a local kid. It was a local guy, wasn't it? Wasn't it like
Oh, yeah.
something?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the name.
I don't answer, leave a voicemail. I don't call back. I get an email, and a minute after that, yo, what's your budget, champ? That's what the email says.
Well, geez, I had to bring my own beer here tonight, you guys. So
I got single cuts for you
I
sitting right there.
I know. Those look delicious. They really, they look like it's like a beer ad here. They got beautiful condensation on them. They're perfectly lit.
But whatever, I don't email him back. I don't call him back. A couple days later, I go, let me just call this guy back, see what it's about. Turns into like, hey, Barstool just gave us $2 million. I go, dude, I've never had $2 million.
Barstool just gave AB $2 million.
That's what the guy says.
Yeah.
I go, dude, I'm not doing that. He goes, a quick 20,000. I go, dude.
That's a big drop.
Wow.
I go, I'm doing good negotiating
I
right
feel like
now.
a sucker for only charging you guys $5,000 for this.
It works down to like, I don't even know, 5,000. I got
And a four pack of single cut.
and I got to fill the gym with kids, and I got to video it with the kids behind AB, and I just go, dude, no shot, I'm doing this. Like, have a good day. So after that, I think Jordy helped me make the decision. Like, dude, we're just not doing this.
Yeah, no, it was a day-long contemplation. 'Cause,
Yeah.
the possible reach we could get from this guy.
So what was the final price you got down to? Where you were like,
5,000 with a gym
Five.
full of kids behind us videoing.
I was skeptical from the get-go, but I was like, I'm like, that's a big reach you could get.
And I took issue with the kids particularly. He's in the midst of all these pretty awful allegations about his
yeah.
who he is as a man, and then we were gonna play rehab, PR rehab for him, and pay him $5,000 for the pleasure.
right? And what was this? Was this when there was still hope that
This was
something?
the
Yes,
beginning.
this was the
earlier.
very
This
beginning.
was the,
season
this
hadn't
was the
started.
this was the honeymoon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we take a pass on it, and I'm glad that we took a pass on that.
Wow. But I can see the especially during the honeymoon period of. But you would think, like, why would you just not do that if you wanted to be an
correct.
ambassador for that kind of thing?
For this area, just nothing lined up. So from that, we're like, dude, this is not going to end well.
If you gave me another professional athlete in that light, I'm trying to think of like somebody give me Deion Sanders in that light. He's not going to be like, no, I'm not going to do it. Pay me this much. He's going to be like, I'm going to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I want to help the kids. Like, somebody that's like very big personality that's, obviously in college sports right now, but, he's not going to be like, yeah, pay me $2 million to get
Wild.
The best story, I went back and reread it just a couple of days ago, is a story that Abigail Rebel did. The headline was Antonio Brown says he's the 100% owner of the Empire. His co-owners disagree, because he was saying that he was 100% owner even when he was like still the 47.5% owner, and even when he had 95%. This poor couple up in Saratoga, the wife was a former school teacher. They had like 5% of the Empire, and they must have just felt like they were sitting in the back of like a Porsche driving 10,000 miles an hour down the highway, watching, bouncing off the guardrails the whole time. Oh my God, what a story! Yeah, that was one of the wildest stories of the year, without a doubt. And the thing was, it was a fun story because it had a remarkable character at the center of it, and nobody was going to die. Nobody was going to die. People might get into maybe an altercation in a bar or something like that, but people might get insulted, but nobody was going to die. And that's a fun story to cover.
Yeah. I wish I had the one guy that works here as a friend, and Antonio Brown was DMing her on like Instagram. I wish we could read off those texts right now. I don't have them. We're not going to read them.
But we're not going to edit. Yeah. But Albany Firebirds is coming back.
They're coming back. There's the positive, right?
Yes. Mike Quarta, who was the guy who apparently thought Antonio Brown would be a great co-owner for the team, is, I believe, going to be involved in the Firebirds. I wish them well.
Let's hope for the better. Right?
Absolutely.
I hope for the best, because I remember growing up with the Albany Firebirds, and then they turned into Albany Conquest.
It was before my time, because when did they wrap up? It was like late 90s, right?
Yeah, we were little.
We
were young.
2000.
Because I remember going to an Albany Conquest game right after they became the Albany Conquest, and I got like a water bottle signed by like every single player on the team.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. But,
yeah, I mean, look, I live in downtown Albany. I love it when people come to downtown Albany and have a good time, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. Listen, little upstate New York, ton of crazy stories.
Yeah.
In this little place. There's a bunch.
Never a dull minute.
Never a dull minute, man. Yeah, Casey, I appreciate you coming on tonight.
I had a great time. How long have we been talking? Like 7 hours?
Who knows? I never know.
It's 2 hours.
14 and a half.
Okay.
2.
All right. No, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It was never boring. I can't believe I only drank 1 beer.
You're going to take those 4 home, okay?
Yeah.
Deal.
I
love single cut.
That's our gift to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice to be up here. You guys have a really nice facility up here.
I appreciate it. No, I'm glad we could do this and talk. Anything you want to plug before we get off here?
Hey, support local journalism.
Yes, please.
If you believe in independent, robust watchdog reporting and delightful features, think about subscribing to the Times-Union. As I think I started out saying, I work with really great people, and they deserve to have their work supported.
Yeah, subscribe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, support the Times-Union. Yeah, we need more just good reporting, the good reporters who have the good sources, put out good stories, and reporting what's going on around here. So
Hold themselves accountable.
Yep, right on.
done. Casey, I appreciate you. We'll
Good time.
we'll catch everybody next time. Thank you.